Today on Locked On Hornets, we'll discuss the vibes surrounding the Hornets this offseason. How anticipated is this offseason for Charlotte? The Ringer comes out with the top 100 players in the league list. Yes, it's rank radio season around these parts, and then we give you another mock draft. That's all today. Locked On Hornets.
You are Locked On Hornets, your daily Charlotte Hornets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
In a minute, cuz we live.
It's Locked On Hornets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Thanks for making us your first listen. We're free and available anywhere you get your podcasts, and that includes YouTube. Doug Branson, everyhornetsboxscore.com, also host Locked On NBA, and I'm Walker Mayo. Listen to me, WFNZ, every weekday from 12 to 3 p.m. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. You can take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first order. Last year, we made a big thing about top 100 lists, right? Wasn't it around this time last year where now we're just searching the internet far and wide to see what other publication dropped a top 100 list, a top 50 list, and then we use that and we aggregate. We are the aggregation station once we get to June, and certainly once we get past the draft, and then we're on like the 2 to 3 day a week type of schedule. Well, thank you to The Ringer for being the first, I believe, the first publication to drop a top 100 list. And we got not Hornets to talk about here, Doug. I think we did have multiple Hornets to talk about last year. I think we had two.
No,
but this time around,
we had three.
Did we have three? Okay,
yeah,
Miles got in there, is that
Miles
right?
cracked the Hoops hype list. Got all the way up to 67. Okay. Everyone else had him unranked. Hoops hype, they were holding on to the hype of Miles Bridges. They put him at 67. I tracked this. I still have the note that shows where everyone was ranked in every one of these lists preseason last year.
Oh, I love that you have that. That's going to be great to compare. And Hoops Hype, believe it in Miles Bridges a ton, like almost 40 spots more, at least almost 40 spots than everybody else. Shout out to Hoops Hype. Ringer, they got one guy on the list. It's LaMelo Ball. He comes in at, drum roll, 53. Oh, excuse me, 49. Does 49. Not come in at 53. He comes in, bad drum roll. LaMelo Ball comes in at number 49 on the Ringer Top 100 Players list. And you said this, it actually shows that he came down from their most previous ranking, but you said that he actually shot up compared to the preseason rankings because the Ringer, they're pros. They're going to give you multiple rankings before the season starts. But he comes in at 49. He was 53, I believe, in the preseason ranking that you mentioned. And then he actually was further up the list in last year's ranking, all sorts of rankings for LaMelo, but he's 49 on this list.
Yeah, I think Ringer, the only ones to keep track of this almost month to month. They took snapshots in January, February, March, April, and then now they've updated it here in June. So he started preseason. I have this as he was 53. He was 50 on ESPN's list. He was 58 on CBS's top 100, and he was 44 on Hoops Hype's top 100. So a little bit of a varied range. But then preseason, this season, he's at 49 on Ringer. We still have to wait on the other lists. But on the Ringer's updated list, he shot up to number 25. He was a top 25 in this player in this league on January 16th after he just began the year.
I remember those
such
days.
A heater. We probably talked about it on this show. We've got a top 25 player. The Hornets are up. Brandon Miller's injured. Never mind.
Yeah. Yeah, it all comes crashing down. So here's the write-up. The analysis on LaMelo coming in at 49. Danny Chau writes this. This entire site was built on the bedrock of ideas like good stats, bad team star. And Ball has become the patron saint of that archetype. He's taken the idea to its very limit. His season averages in points, rebounds, and assists can be met by only 9 other players in NBA history, and he averages more three-point attempts per game. More three-point attempts per game than the entire 2010-2011 grit and grind Memphis Grizzlies. So already just a pure banger of a write-up from Danny Chau. Lots of hate. lots of great context as to why he's hating, with some historical context. Again, historical stats here. The later part of the write-up is this: LaMelo's ranking then feels immaterial with his talent, and his talent is gleaming and irresponsible at the same time. His style loping stride.
Irrepressible.
That's right. Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry. Irrepressible. Yeah, I can read. His style, loping strides, nonchalant one-legged recliner threes is immediately recognizable. But more than anything, what LaMelo needs is a more stable context. Ball has only paced more than 51 games in a season. What if his ankles could hold up to the immense pressure he applies? His stats suggest a perennial all-star and all-NBA candidate. And I think you go back to that January ranking, and that's where you see that come to life, because he was very good. And then post All-Star break, things come crashing down for the Hornets. You have your one game against the Lakers post All-Star break, where because of what LaMelo was as a player, the last 3 minutes of that game in winning time, everything was dictated by LaMelo. Yeah, there was a lot of attacking Luka, but not on the game-winning shot, where they decided, all right, we need to move Luka off of Luke and of LaMelo in any kind of switching scenario. So they had to believe Dorian Finney-Smith and Jared Vanderbilt at the top. So like two capable defenders to keep LaMelo in check, because he had been cooking Luka so often, and it didn't matter. LaMelo hits a floater, game winner, bang, and that was it, man. I mean, you talk about a fall off. It was a really, really rough stride for LaMelo post that game, but that's why you go pre that game. He's top 25. Now he's 49. It feels right to me, Doug.
So the final line of this is, it's a nightly acid trip with LaMelo, but we're still waiting for that moment of clarity. And the question is, who's responsible for creating that moment of clarity? How much responsibility lies with LaMelo Ball, who has missed so many games to this point in his career, and how much of that responsibility will be on the franchise to surround him with enough talent? So, because the one thing that I argue with in this write-up from Chau, which I agree is great, is that his nonchalant one-legged recliner threes immediately recognizable. They might be recognizable to NBA heads, certainly recognizable to the sickos that watch this podcast. It's recognizable to his fans online, but I would say to the larger NBA audience, not immediately recognizable. Why? Because he hasn't been in the postseason. That's where things become immediately recognizable to everyone. That's where Tyrese Halliburton is becoming immediately recognizable right now. So, that's the one thing that I would argue with. And going back to my question, how much of this is going to be on LaMelo to stay on the floor for, 65, 70 games in a season? And how much of it is going to be on the Hornets to put enough talent and to be aggressive enough with their roster choices to go and get him some postseason experience?
Reality is it's both. LaMelo has to stay healthy because this team isn't very good with LaMelo off of the floor. We all know about the record with him on the floor, and he could be a good stats, bad team guy, except go look at the record with him off the floor. It is a disaster. Like, completely a disaster when LaMelo just isn't playing basketball for this squad. So when LaMelo is healthy, yeah, I think he is a worthwhile. I think he could be recognizable if he stays healthy, but also the Hornets part of this too is to put the right talent around him. And so the real answer, of course, is the one that says it's both of their faults. And I don't even know if it's LaMelo's body's fault, because his ankles keep giving out on him. And then even with the ankle braces, there still are some injuries, not the disaster injury that holds him out. Part of this, the team being so bad, is that I'm not exactly sure how much of it is the team holding him back and how much LaMelo couldn't suit up in a night in March when there's meaningless basketball to be played. Could he really suit up if it wasn't meaningless? I don't know. But that's that whole lack of clarity thing, and we're all still tripping on acid because of everything that they've put us through over the last 5+ years.
Well, and the issue is now, I think you could have some qualms with how the Hornets handled the early part of his career, and if they were aggressive enough then to get to the postseason or to get past the play-in, and that's probably why they made the pivot off of James Borrego. But now they're in this weird paralyzed chicken and the egg sort of situation where the lack of trust in his health is keeping the team from moving forward on those decisions, right? And it's so we need to see him be healthy first, for us to win, but we can't win unless he's healthy for, you know what I'm saying? It's just like they're stuck in the state of paralysis, which is why I haven't necessarily advocated for it, but I could definitely see why you would just want to reset all of that so that you could have more clarity about your own direction, and you're not depending on seeing if a guy can play 70 plus games after all of these ankle injuries.
No, I think that's 100% correct. I will say, if we're trying to figure out who's responsible, not repressible, who's responsible for this, what I would tell you is I'd be pretty frustrated if the Hornets had that as one of their biggest reasons as to why they're not looking to win. It's, well, we'll do it once LaMelo gets hurt or once LaMelo gets healthy. Why don't you just try to shoot for both? Like, maybe LaMelo is healthy for that one season, and then you've already done your work, and now you've already brought in the pieces to help him as soon as he's healthy, rather than having one season of health and then next year we'll really go at it. And what if he's not healthy that year? That would make me frustrated if that was a monster part of the reason as to why they're comfortable with trading everything and not going after pieces to help him win.
Well, I would say it's probably not connected directly to his health, but their winning basketball games is so connected to his health that if they were waiting for some sign that this team could win basketball games before fully, because I think that's what it's been about. It's been about seeing if they could pull off what Atlanta pulled off a few seasons ago, where you make a surprise run into the playoffs and it's like, okay, there's some potential here. Now we will invest. But that potential relies so heavily, because you have not invested in depth. It relies so heavily on LaMelo being an all NBA level player. It's just he hasn't proven that he can be that over the course of an entire season. And so now we're stuck in this chicken and the egg situation.
All right, coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Bees everywhere!
We have a question in the Sicko Satchel about our draft history. How have the Locked On Hornets guys done in previous drafts? You know a lot of these answers. Maybe you forgot about a couple of our guys in the pre-draft process. We'll revisit that coming up next. LOH. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center, and you can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. All-in-one convenience is provided by Monarch Money. Instead of just juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan for those long-term goals I was talking about. Plus, it allows for easy collaboration. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. Code LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year. More Locked On Hornets ahead. Before we revisit our draft history, Doug, I know you sent a video into the group chat discussing really it was the comments on the video that you sent in the Locked On Hornets group chat, and it represents the vibes surrounding this team right now, going into this offseason where, the draft talk, like, our numbers are pretty good with the draft videos. People are still interested in it. People still want to hear about the guys that the Hornets might be considering at 4, the world-famous WFNZ FanDuel text line. People are still popping off on draft targets for number 4 for sure. It doesn't feel like it's as much as we've had with some of the other picks. Last year, I think people got excited about Dalton Connect. And so there was a lot of talk about him. Maybe last year it's somewhat comparable, not nearly as much as it was with Brandon Miller and Scoot. Like, obviously, when you have the second overall pick and you're going to get a good player, a lot of people really interested in people's opinions on that. So how are you sussing out, like, one, how people feel about this draft as it pertains to the Hornets, and also with the comments that you came across with this video in question. Does it feel different with those comments that you've seen surrounding this franchise, maybe compared to other years surrounding this franchise?
Well, I think that fans always gravitate more towards the draft when it feels like there are no other options for a team to get better. Right? I think people view the draft, particularly when you have a top 5 pick in that draft, they're going to view it as a get out of jail free card. If you can nail that pick, if you can draft a star. The problem is that today we're drafting 18 or 19-year-old kids, particularly in the top 5, you're drafting young. And so even in the best case scenarios, unless you've got surefire stars like Cooper Flagg, you're going to have to take a few seasons to figure that out. I mean, even Brandon Miller, who was drafted 2nd overall, obviously the injuries knocked him out of the top 100. He was 85 preseason last year, now completely out of the top 100 in the ringer. But even if you take away the injuries, there were some things that we were looking at and going, okay, he's got to improve on X, Y, and Z. He's not immediately an all-star or all-NBA talent, okay? But people view that as the get out of jail free card. If we can find the guy, then that will unleash this team and maybe make the ownership group and the front office more aggressive in finding talent to put around that player, because now we've got the player. And so I think whenever a fan base totally gravitates towards the draft, it's just a signal of the atrophy that has happened. Like, nobody believes they're going to make a trade. No one believes that they're going to go out in free agency and even be in any kind of conversation. So all you have is the draft. That's all you can cling to, because at least you know that somebody has to run up to the podium and put a card in that says the name of the player that they want to take. Like, you can at least trust them to make that decision, because we've seen them do that before. But everything else, you're just like, the first major trade this franchise makes, it is going to be earth-shattering. It is going to shock all of us. We're not going to anticipate it, because this franchise has just been left to atrophy for so long that the first time they do it is going to feel like a completely earth-shattering thing.
Bob Bass is not walking through that door, because we used to be real used to that sort of thing. That's all they did, because they had to. Like, all right, well, if we're just not going to shell out the money to keep these guys long term, and they're just going to walk out the door, Bob is like, I got to figure out how to at least get something in return. And all he did was freaking nail it every single time. Again, I will say it a million times. I want the 30 for 30 on Bob Bass. I want to go down that 30 for 30 rabbit hole with Bob Bass as an awesome NBA executive. So just to give some context here, I was talking about a video that you sent in the group chat. Tell the people what the video was about and some of the comments that followed.
So this video is called Searching for the Worst American Sports Team.
There you go.
And I don't agree with a lot of the conclusions that it ultimately made about the worst teams, but the Charlotte Hornets were mentioned. And in fact, he did some kind of mathematical ranking that took several factors into account. And I feel like the Hornets scored the worst on the ranking, and yet somehow did not end up as the worst franchise in American sports. That went to the Arizona Cardinals for some reason, who, might I remind you, I think won a championship way back in the way back, and then also went to a Super Bowl in recent memory. I remember them being in a Super Bowl against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Right. The Hornets have never made a conference finals. Not a finals. They have never made a conference finals. They've never been televised on Christmas. I mean, this is crazy. And so I sent this to the group chat, not to watch the video, because honestly, the Hornets don't get much conversation. The Clippers made it over the Hornets as the worst American sports team for the NBA, but the comments were just all down the line. This is one of the comments says, "Dang, the Hornets can't even be the best at being the worst." Another comment said, "The Hornets are so bad that people forget they exist to list them as the worst franchise in pro sports. The Hornets Bobcats have finished top of their division 0 times in over 30 years of play. They have won 0 playoff series since the franchise was revived in 2004. That is correct. They have not won since 2002 when they beat the Orlando Magic. Neither iteration ever made it past the second round of the playoffs. People literally forget they exist because they never play in nationally televised games, and the most memorable player in franchise history is either Muggsy Bogues, who is famous for being short, or Kemba Walker, a guy who made one All-NBA team. People remember that teams like the Clippers exist because they share a city with the Lakers. They remember the Cardinals exist because they played in a Super Bowl and had a Hall of Famer in Larry Fitzgerald for decades. The Hornets have always been a joke, and there has never been any hope for that to change ever.
Okay, all right. We're going too far. Fine. We got to the point where now only we can make fun of our favorite team. You guys mentioning the Hornets need to freaking stop it. Once you bring up Muggsy Bogues for being famous, only for being short, the guy was awesome. Kemba Walker, we don't need any disparaging comments about Kemba Walker. Far be it for me to actually pound the table and argue, get in a debate with somebody for not having the Hornets as the worst franchise of all time. That's not a way that I want to spend my time today. What I do want to say is that I will the comments surrounding it. Yeah, it's not a great look when there's an overwhelming faction of the comments saying it should be the Hornets, and the Cardinals probably should be to defend our Arizona friends if we have any. You know, Cardinals have made it to the conference championship game a couple times, the Super Bowl one time. But anyways, yes, those are the comments.
I would trade.
Surrounding,
I would trade it with in terms of just like postseason success. Like I would trade with the Cardinals for sure. I mean, there were so many teams. I would, of course, the Clippers. I mean, obviously, I wouldn't.
I don't think
it's like the one team that has. It's the one team that has the one owner worse than any of the Charlotte owners. I wouldn't trade that, but I would trade it for literally everything else that they've had, for the Lob City Clippers, for the Hall of Fame talent that they've had, for the playoff success, what little they've had. I would trade it. In a second.
All right. So actually, I do want to trading it in a second seems a lot. And here's why. Because I think what you're doing is you're flipping the Clippers' most recent success and what the Hornets achieved at the very beginning of their run. Because, Lob City is fun, but they never made a conference finals until, 4 years ago, and they got dispatched pretty quickly, but they did make it. So is it just getting there one time that makes you trade it in second? So a lot of their success feels like what the Hornets were doing at the very beginning before they left for New Orleans. So I love having Muggsy and Zoe and LJ, and I love those guys. Would you trade that for the Lob City Clippers and the Paul George being the leader of a team that gets to the conference finals because Kawhi and everybody else is hurt and you weren't going to win, but at least you get there? I don't know if I'd trade it in a second, but yeah, I think it's like neutral in my opinion.
I'd trade it for Steve Ballmer, who is somebody that's interested, who has the capital to invest in the team, has the willingness to invest in the team, and seems to be threading that needle between I want to be involved enough to make sure that everybody's focused on winning and putting a good product out there for fans, but not so involved that I'm Ishbia, emailing staff and being like, I'm going to be more involved. It's like, oh God, no. Right. I think he's threaded that needle perfectly. But the point is that there's urgency with the Clippers. Right. There's urgency to put a good product on the floor. There's investment. And that's all I want. I just want someone to come out and say, we're focused on making the playoffs as soon as possible. And none of this second inning baloney. I don't know how. It's mind-boggling to me.
All right, Doug is full of hope on a Monday. We sent him down a dark path, and I apologize for doing that by bringing that video up because he went to a dark space and he refused to turn on the light, and now he's still there. Here's the light, Doug. We're coming out. We're coming out, man. It's going to be okay. Coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Bees everywhere!
Yeah, here's a happier spot. Let's go back into previous drafts and take a look at some of our picks from previous drafts. That'll make you feel better. Coming up next, LOH. This episode is brought to you by DoorDash. NBA fans, you know what time it is. Playoff season means big performances and even bigger rewards. DoorDash is bringing the heat with a slam dunk deal for Dash Pass members during the 2025 NBA postseason. It's called They Swoosh, You Score. Anytime a player drops 50 or more points in a playoff game, Dash Pass members score a free 3-piece crispy tender combo from Wingstop the very next day. Just place an order of $20 or more. Use the code Wingstop50 at checkout, and that combo is yours. Crispy, delicious, and totally free. Offer valid noon to midnight the day after the game, and terms do apply. So here's the play. Again, sign up for Dash Pass to unlock this and more exclusive deals all season long. And when any player scores 50 or more in a playoff game, Dash Pass members can grab a free 3-piece crispy tender combo from Wingstop the next day with a $20 plus order and code Wingstop50. That's Dash Pass, your door to more savings, more flavor, and more ways to win. Terms apply. More Locked On Hornets ahead. Keeper of the Sicko Satchel. Before we get to the mock draft, we have a question that was dropped into the satchel, I guess, over the weekend. Doug, what you got for the people?
Schumann of the 22nd Mullins Regiment asks this: in the Walker and Doug draft coverage era, the past 6 or 7 years, who are the draft picks that you would like a mulligan for backing them, and who are the I told you so picks that paid off when nobody else would get on board?
Well, so I've got the obvious ones here. I'm interested in your answers on this, Doug, because we can go back to what Rick Bonnell would always say when we had Tuesdays with Rick. Shout out to Rick, who would always joke with you for giving out 15 separate draft roses. You had it's when the Hornets were constantly selecting 11th. They weren't selecting in the top 5 all that much. They were constantly selecting 11, which means that vastly it increases the size of the draft pool and the pool that we're choosing from. So we had to talk about a lot of separate guys, really in that range from, I don't know, 7 to 24, whatever. Like, there was a lot of different players. So who are the guys that come to mind for you in some of those questions that Schumann asked?
If I look back to 2018, that's the Miles Bridges draft. I think I liked SGA. I don't recall. I'm not going to do the sort of, this is why we call Kevin O'Con Man, is like to do the revisionist draft history and say, oh, I was big on SGA, when in reality I was just like mid on SGA. So that's that. I think I was high on Mikal Bridges, but obviously he was taken before the Hornets. I was low on Kevin Knox, so I do know that for a fact, and that has panned out. Yeah. Another guy I was high on, I'm going to take the L for this one, Lonnie Walker, unfortunately. I mean, he tried. He had some moments where it looked like maybe he'd figure it out. But I think we ended up taking Lonnie Walker in our mock draft, I'm pretty sure.
I think so.
So that's going to be an L.
Don't we usually do this every year? I think we go back and we look at the draft history as well, more so than just what
I
this
can see if I can pull
is.
it up. If I recall, SGA was already off the board. I don't think we passed on SGA and Miles Bridges for Lonnie Walker.
Yeah, that was my guy, right? If you're talking about just nailed it, who are my best calls in NBA draft history as long as Walker's been covering the league? SGA is that guy for me. That's the famous story of us hosting a show at Spectrum Center. It was our first time there. I throw a tantrum as soon as they trade SGA. Doug is like saying, okay, I know this is your natural reaction, but we're actually in Spectrum Center where there are like Hornets people that allowed us to do this around. So like, please chill out. I remember David joining the stream and saying, okay, what do you think the Hornets can do at point guard now? I said, I don't know. They just traded the franchise. So I was kicking and screaming like a 5-year-old throwing a tantrum. SGA was that guy for me. My other big time hit, who I did draft with you a couple of years ago, Jalen Williams. Big Jalen Williams guy, and Jalen Williams playing in the finals right now. Those are my two biggest hits of guys that I wanted the Hornets to go after, and SGA clearly number one.
Okay, I've looked this up. We did pass on both SGA and Miles Bridges.
That was not a Walker pick. I can tell you that.
Were you on this draft with me? Was this?
This is the first one. This first one.
I wish you had been more adamant about SGA.
You know what? No, yeah.
Well, I know you and I talked about this draft because we did it from the arena. We did a show from the arena on this draft. So you had to have been involved in this. I wish you had been more adamant about SGA and saved me from.
Well, hold
That's
on.
going to be my word. And people are going to say, Scoot. We don't know what Scoot is going to be or not going to be. We know how the Lonnie Walker thing turned out. That's going to be my biggest L.
Well, So the draft with you, Doug, this is how it works usually, right? It's you do have strong opinions on this stuff. And so it's just basically, Doug, you got it, my man. Like whatever you want to roll with the draft. That's how it usually goes. In fact, what's funny is with this most recent draft that we've done, which we're not going to. When are we going to release the results of our most recent mock draft podcast network wide? Is that coming up soon?
June 16th, I believe, is the air date. But we took VJ Edgecombe. We can say it. We took VJ.
Oh, okay.
Edgecombe.
All right. Well, there you go. Yeah, we just went ahead and selected VJ Edgecombe at 4, which both of us agreed to. But Doug is already spearheading negotiations with the Spurs host for us to possibly move up, and then included me blindly into a group chat. Hey, yada, yada, I'm trying to get the ball rolling. What would it take to move up? It's like, Doug, this is his baby. He takes control of it, and then he spearheads a lot of the decision-making process.
But see, I've learned my lesson, which is if you're going to go strong on a player, make sure it's a player that is out of your team's draft range, and then no one can punish you because they don't.
There you go.
They don't end up taking them. So if Dylan Harper is great, oh, man, I was right on that. And if he's wrong, I just never mention it again because he was nowhere near the Hornets. You guys took the 1 year that I was out doing Locked On stuff, and I took a break from the pod. It was you and Nada, and you took Zaire Williams with the 11th pick.
Oh, dude, let me tell you. He's on. So I promised I wasn't going to just mention my hits. That was all me. Loved me. That's my biggest miss because I loved Zaire Williams. That was a guy. That was, it's funny. I loved Keon Johnson in that draft class too. And so the Nets right now, they just went after all of Walker's misses because they went after Zaire. They went after Keon. Loved both of them. But yes, Zaire Williams. So I have it broken down into categories. Nailed it. SGA, Jalen Williams. Not my first targets, but I really liked him. Mikal Bridges, where that was SGA in that draft. I liked SGA more than Mikal. Donovan Mitchell, I really liked, but that was only because I didn't think Malik Monk was going to be there. So I absolutely would have selected Malik Monk. It's why I can't complain. Love Donovan Mitchell, but Malik Monk would have been my pick too, and I would have missed on that. Neutral, like guys I really liked, but they're fine. Devin Vassell, and I was a big Devin Vassell guy.
I like Vassell.
And Jalen Duren. Both you and I would have also selected Jalen Duren. He was in the Jalen Williams category. I feel like he's kind of neutral right now. There's some bad with the defense. He had some good playoff performances. He's a good player. I feel like he's kind of hit neutral right now because Jalen Duren was number 1 on your and I's boat board in terms of centers. Mark Williams I was higher on than you were, but I still wanted Jalen more. So I don't know. We'll see what happens with Jalen Duren, but he's kind of neutral.
Jalen Duren is still a TBD, I think. But certainly, I think he's going to end up being a better results player than Mark Williams for sure. But we'll see what he ends up, what his ceiling is with that Pistons team. I will say this is going to make there are certain people in the comment section that this is going to enrage what I'm about to say. Are you ready? I will take my victory lap on LaMelo Ball because I feel like of the people that were talking about it on the show, I was the highest on LaMelo Ball. I didn't have concerns about the shooting. And I thought if LaMelo Ball's there, he wasn't in the mock draft that we did. Yeah. LaMelo Ball went number 1 overall to Minnesota. Anthony Edwards went to Golden State. And then we passed up on Wiseman because we had questions. We were right about that. We took Onyeka Okongwu, so we missed on Halliburton. But that's tough. Like we didn't know, Halliburton went about Hallie. Where he went in the draft. So
right, we weren't going to take Hallie. I remember liking Devin Vassell the best in terms of guys I thought that were going to be there for us. And then LaMelo too. Once LaMelo, I can't take a victory lap on LaMelo. I liked him, but I was scared. I was kind of like, sure, if you want to take him, that's going to be fun. Scoot Henderson though, we should address Scoot because you and I both were definitely in love with Scoot. I put that in the not looking great, but also not completely decided. That's the category I'd put Scoot in, but it's not looking great.
It's not. But it's also not looking awful. I think he recovered pretty nicely last season, and I think Chauncey and that Trailblazers team, they seem to figure something out. They seem to pull out of whatever tailspin they were involved in, and so I think Scoot. I'm comfortable. I'm obviously more than comfortable with where Brandon's game is developing, but he's got questions too. Like I don't think it's not clear cut after year 2 for sure.
No.
Any other
all right,
other hits and misses?
Well, I would say we should revisit the 2020 NBA draft, or the 2021, excuse me, because that's the all-time bad one for the Hornets, where they select James Bouknight, and then they trade back into the first round to get Kai Jones. I remember you and I both. Was that the Zaire Williams? Oh, it was. Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah. So you're right. I missed heavily on Zaire Williams.
But you guys didn't make the same mistake that the Hornets. You didn't try to trade back into the draft. In fact, Kai Jones went 12th in that mock draft for some reason, and you didn't trade back in. JT Thor went 24th to the Houston Rockets. So that was a tough draft. A lot of landmines in that draft.
We both, I remember you actually helped me out because Nada was not able to do the show. So you did a hit with me from the airport. And we talked about our love for Jalen Johnson and how much we liked him. And he's starting to hit late, but now he's starting to hit. So I want to find one other bad one that I missed on. Like, because I
think
Zaire,
you were a big Malachi Branham guy, and he's struggling right now. I would put
I was a big yes. Very much like Malachi Branham. That was another one. But
I'm always reminding I'm always reminding you of who your guys are. Whenever they're good and bad, I'm fair at least, but I am always reminding you of who your guys were.
Last one, I guess, for me, I did settle on Reed Shepherd being the pick. Last year was tough for me to just be all in on a guy. Like I wasn't. I'll be honest, it didn't feel like I was as decisive as I was in previous drafts. Last year was a really hard one for me to get a grip on, kind of similar to this one. But Reed Shepherd is who I settled on. So Reed Shepherd's not looking great either after just 1 year, but tough situation for him to crack the rotation.
Situation. Yeah, and that's the lesson to take away from this, is that whether it's Lonnie Walker or Scoot Henderson or Reed Shepherd, it just takes several years to really figure this thing out. And then any argument that you're going to have is almost going to be pointless because so much of it is situation. Is where were they on the, how did they respond to being where they were in the rotation? And, and then the players that they're playing with. I mean, it's so difficult to have these arguments, but we will do it. It's difficult, but we will do it. And I will defend Scoot until I die.
There you go. Man, I keep thinking of some of these. I do remember not liking. What's funny is I didn't like the PJ Washington pick at the time and then became a fan over preseason. Like I just started to really like what PJ was showing.
He crushed the very beginning of the season. I mean, he made you a believer right off the top.
Well, 7 threes in his debut. I was a big Brandon Clark guy. I wanted him out of Gonzaga that year. They passed on him.
Ball. I'll take a little bit of an L on Ball, although he's hanging around like he is. He's still in the NBA.
Given where he was drafted, sure. You were also a big fan of Rui. You loved Rui Hachimura. Rui! You used to love doing that.
Yeah, we traded in that 19 draft. We traded up to get Ball.
That was...
Dallas got PJ Washington, so they eventually got their man.
Our best draft, I think, in terms of the mock draft, because it's not been a great history for us. Our best one is when we took both of our selections, unlike Mitch Kupchak, at 13 and 15 in, I guess, 2022, that would have been. Yeah. And we selected Jalen Williams and Mark Williams. We took both of those guys.
Well, that might
have been reversed, but
in that draft, yeah, you're right. Oh man, yeah, that's great. The one that I was involved in this one too. Yes, because yes, and then we traded. I wanted the trade, and then you got to make the pick on the 20th pick. And Duran was already gone, so we took Mark Williams because we needed a center, but Duran was already gone to 9 at the Spurs.
Did we take somebody at 20? Who'd we get at 20?
We got Jalen Williams.
At 20? Oh my God. We cleaned it up, baby. Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
That was the best one for sure. I don't know what else. What else did we get in that deal?
I forget.
Oh, we got Jakob Poeltl. Which to me, honestly, would have been great because Mark would have gotten to start the year. I mean, he started the year in the G League anyway, but I think with Poeltl, Poeltl probably outplays Mark for a little while, and Mark has some time to like beat up on second units instead of getting thrust into the lineup when they hit the ejector button on Plumlee. So like that honestly would have been a better situation. Mark might have panned out a little bit better had the Hornets listened to us and done the same thing.
You have some like versatility, Mark, helping you out on the perimeter. Pirtle just straight up drop coverage. Yeah, you could have played that out a little bit. We don't have much time. Let's get to a quick rapid fire mock draft. What do you have?
Let's see. Looks like Yahoo has updated, but VJ Edgecombe's still the pick for the Charlotte Hornets, and Ace Bailey still the pick. Also, the consensus mock draft from NBA.com, they updated, and despite some conversations about VJ Edgecombe moving to 3, the consensus is moving even more strongly to VJ Edgecombe at 4 for the Charlotte Hornets and Ace Bailey at 3 for the 76ers. And I don't know how much of that is Ace Bailey to 76ers and how much of that is somebody wanting to get up to 3 to select Ace Bailey. But still, VJ Edgecombe locked into 4, and that's who we took in the mock draft.
Okay, that'll do it for Locked On Hornets. Thanks for making us your first listen. We're free and available anywhere you get your podcast. That includes YouTube. Check out Doug, Locked On NBA with Matt Moore and Hayes. Also check out his Substack, everyhornetsboxscore.com. Also listen to me, Walker Mail, every weekday on Wes and Walker from 12 to 3 p.m. Sports Radio 92.7 WFNZ. Have a great rest of your day. We'll be back with you tomorrow.